Welcome to the SBI Podcast, offering CEOs, sales and marketing leaders ideas to make the number.
Welcome, SBI Podcast listeners and video podcast viewers. My name is Greg Alexander, and I am the CEO of SBI, a sales and marketing company dedicated to helping you make your number. This is the weekly SBI podcast, and its purpose is to help you make your number by getting your peers to share with you how they make theirs. Today's guest is Chris Lonnett, who is the Vice President of Sales Operations at Motorola. This great American company has gone through a lot of change recently, and it might be helpful to refresh everyone's understanding of who Motorola is at this point. So Motorola Solutions provides mission-critical communication systems to the public safety market. For example, they help firefighters see around buildings and police officers see around street corners. When first responders need to deal with a catastrophe, they rely on Motorola's technology to do so. Chris has been with the company for a little over 22 years, spending his entire career at Motorola, all in sales. And he received his education at the University of Michigan. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Greg.
Okay, today I'm going to ask Chris to help his peers, other sales ops leaders, set their company up for success by demonstrating how to build a data plan. So why have I asked Chris to help us with this? Listeners and watchers of this show are struggling with dirty data, systems issues, and having lots of data but not knowing how to derive meaningful insights from it. But we live in the era of big data, and sales ops leaders across the globe are being asked to master the skill of data planning to outsell and outmarket the bad guys. So we're going to use a section of SBI's revenue growth methodology to guide our conversation, specifically pages 161 and 162, which deals directly with building a data plan. If you want to follow along at home, download a copy of our methodology at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016 report. And for those that are watching the video, I'm holding up a copy of it so you know what you get when you see it. So with that, Chris, we're going to jump into it. So let me start with a somewhat unfair question. But since you've been at this in sales at Motorola for 22 years, you probably have a great historical perspective. So we're talking about data planning today and all the struggles that sales ops leaders have with data planning. So my first question is, what is your sales ops data architecture? And how and why was it designed the way that it is?
Well, as we really started taking a more mature approach towards data planning here in the past couple of years, we really tried to just simplify our approaches to get down to basics. So I'd say that our approach was really kind of just starting with saying, who are our customers, where are our customers, what are they buying from us, and how are they buying from us? Those are really just the basic questions that we wanted to frame our architecture around. And of course, we also had our internal approach, a taxonomy, if you will, of the products and services that we have. And with that, we felt we had the basic architecture that we could use to really get the key and solidify the key data that we really wanted as we built our plans going forward.
So simplifying it is music to my ears. So you said 4 things there. I just want to make sure that I get them again. So what were they?
It's who the customer is.
Yep.
It's where they're at. It's what they're buying from us, and how they're buying in terms of route to market.
Awesome. Those are the 4 big questions, and sometimes, unfortunately, our clients can't answer those simple questions because they got data all over the place. So simplifying it, getting those 4 questions answered is a great idea.
Absolutely. We found that we had a lot of data, but an inability to really extract kind of the value that we wanted, an inability to connect and have any correlations or comparisons across our own teams and regions, just because of the different approach over time towards these very simple, basic questions and language and terminology. So again, by harnessing on what we really cared about and then establishing a common vocabulary approach to talking about them, we then could kind of have a foundational ability to have comparisons on these key foundational topics that we really matter, and then build from there.
Yeah. So when I talk to people like you that lead sales ops in large companies, and I'll have some version of that conversation, so maybe they're struggling with data, and I'll do my best to try to simplify for them. What I hear from them is, I don't have that data, or I need this data and I can't get to it, et cetera. So for the audience, just to put this in context here, so what, against those 4 questions, what data do you have, and what data do you need to have, and how did you piece it together?
I'd say from our perspective, we have all the data we want. It's all there. It's not, and we also have an understanding at our company of how important this data is. I think the industries have all understood that data is this phenomenal resource to help our businesses take things to the next level. We've got some great tools and systems in place for the data, so we're not at a want for any of that. What's the key is within the data that it's actually usable, that you can connect it across the various systems, that it's connected from system to system, that it's connected in terms of terminology, as I alluded to earlier. I think that one of the things that we find that we need then is, once you do establish kind of the way you want to approach things going forward, what you lose is historical connection going backwards, because you're really starting fresh when you start coming up with new terminologies and a new fresh approaches. You have a great path going forward, but you lose and never can get that which you never had in terms of a common view in the past.
Yeah.
I also think it's tough sometimes, and we struggle in multi-tier distribution channels, getting some of the granularity of data that you want and need. So we strive for that, and I think more and more we think about some questions that we've never really asked. So it's clearly not in our data sets. Is things around the customer's state of mind, or what was driving them to make the purchases in the first place. And those are just kind of insights as we think about business analytics and getting more predictive and prescriptive, as opposed to more reverse, backward, historical looking. Those are things that we don't have, and we'd like to start to build into things down the road.
So that leads me to my next question, which is great. So you said a few things there, which were you've identified some data gaps. So, for example, granularity when you sell through a multi-tier distribution can be hard. You're asking new questions today that maybe you didn't ask before in the past. So trying to find answers, historical answers, can be tough because the questions you're asking today you didn't ask before, so therefore you weren't collecting the data to answer those questions. So how do you plug those gaps, or do you? Do you just leave them blank?
Well, I think the only way we've found to approach it is you have to operationalize your systems and ingrain them into your business and sales operations, and have this data be front and center into how you're running the teams, and by the way, how you're providing value, hopefully, to the sales teams that are my customers, to make them more effective and efficient. And when you do that, they're using the data, they're enriching it every day to run their business, and that's where the gaps will be identified, and that's where the gaps will get cleaned up.
Interesting. Your answer reminds me of a friend of mine, Scott White, and Scott is the Chief Revenue Officer at ClearData. Before that, he was in your role at Rackspace for a number of years, and he was kind enough to allow me to interview him for an article for the SBI magazine, and the title of that article was Discovering Strategic Gold, and we talked an awful lot about data, about sales analytics, et cetera. So I want to draw the attention of this audience to that magazine article. If you're listening to this show with Chris, which that tells me you probably have an interest in getting better at sales ops and using data to do so. So for those that are watching the video, I'm holding up a copy of it. If you go on SBI.com, you can subscribe to the magazine and get this. So why don't we take a quick break and give you some more information about the magazine, but we'll be right back.
Making your number is hard. Your problems are complex. Complex problems need complex solutions. Introducing the SBI magazine. Read in-depth stories written by award-winning journalists about how your peers have overcome their problems to make the numbers. When you need more than a tweet, social post, or blog article, turn to the SBI magazine. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com to subscribe.
Welcome back. My name is Greg Alexander, and I am the CEO of SBI, and my guest today is Chris Lonnett, who heads sales ops at Motorola. Today, we are discussing how a sales ops leader can develop a data plan to enable the big data analytics application to the discipline of sales. And we are using SBI's revenue growth methodology to do it, specifically pages 161 and 162. Before the break, Chris shared with us his data architecture and how he identifies data gaps. During this segment, we're going to hear from Chris how he battles dirty data and introduce this idea of data stewardship. So Chris, let me ask you, are you like many and you suffer from dirty data, or have you cracked that code?
Well, we haven't cracked the code, but we're certainly taking steps to clean our data. We've got data enrichment firms that we work with to clean up our data. We have data stewards on staff that work to keep our data clean. We put processes in place so that once it's clean, we hope it stays clean. But as I said earlier, I think that the key towards identifying the gaps in our data as well as cleaning dirty data is to operationalize your data into your everyday operations and where you provide value for your sellers and your sales managers, and that will naturally get the sets of eyes that you want with the knowledge and the experts who know it to clean and scrub the data and keep it clean.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So if you're creating this data, if it doesn't get used, you have no idea if it's clean or not. If you operationalize it, to use your words, and you give it to the team, they use it and they come to you and say, hey, that's wrong, or I need more of this, et cetera. Great advice for the audience here. You know, if you think about dirty data as a problem, you try to identify root cause. I mean, you're going through great pains. I mean, you have data stewards on staff. You're using third-party data cleansing companies to make this happen. So you're allocating people and money to fix this problem. What is the root cause of the dirty data problem?
Well, I think it gets dirty when it's not being used. So, when you focus on and whenever you are maybe looking for and capturing more data than you really need, so then you don't have the focus on it. So again, I think when you really get into saying what data really matters and putting it into the everyday operations of people, then you're going to have the focus. I use an example. We implemented Salesforce.com about 4 years ago, and really did not implement it well in terms of having a consistent approach across the company. And we also let it spiral out of control quickly in terms of how many questions and fields we put out there in different places for sales to ask. And the next thing you knew, you had thousands of questions that maybe were answered by some and not others, and maybe it was the same question asked 5 different times by different sales regions or product teams. So that you're obviously never going to have good data in that approach. Our approach was, again, focus on the foundations, ask the question one way, have a standard way of answering, and we know that we have pretty clean data when we only then ask our salespeople to answer 20 questions rather than 200 about their opportunity.
Yeah. So we're talking to Chris Lonnett, who heads sales ops at Motorola, which includes a lot of things in his job. I'm being a little tactical here and asking him about this data planning concept and how to battle dirty data and systems, et cetera, just because he's been doing this inside of a large company for a long time and has some of the battle scar tissue to share with us. And it is a pressing problem, for our audience members. When we ask viewers and listeners and readers to send in their questions, I mean, we get asked this question all the time. So that's the reason why we're having this conversation today. My next question, Chris, is who owns what data and why? So you mentioned data stewardship. You mentioned things like fields and Salesforce.com. So now you got lots of user-generated data, which, if not handled correctly, can be a recipe for disaster. So who owns what data?
Well, I think data historically has been in separate groups. Folks have their own data pools, and I think as passions develop around certain projects and initiatives, as we certainly have had recently in sales, those groups then evolve and put some focus on their data. Clearly, that's not going to work as you go forward and really get to where any company wants to be. We currently have a company-wide project to update our ERP systems and things like our configuration and quoting systems for all our sellers globally. And as part of that, we're actively looking at kind of restructuring from an organizational perspective around customer data, customer master, pricing and contract sets, things like that, to address that exact issue. It'll be a challenge for us, a new challenge, all centered around data, but it's one that we're going to have to tackle in order to make that problem go away and address it the right way.
Boy, you guys are incredible risk takers. So inside of 5 years, you implemented Salesforce.com, and now you're putting in a new ERP system? Holy cow. That's a lot of system changes.
Yeah, it's a great time. We've been very aggressive from an IT investment perspective and our platforms to kind of drive the change that we feel like we need within our culture. And otherwise, we've implemented Google applications across the company in terms of email and business applications, a voice-over IP phone system, forecasting module within Salesforce.com, new lead management systems, all within the past 12 months. So it's been a very active and busy time here at Sales Operations with our IT partners here at Motorola Solutions.
Yeah, no question. Those are all great projects. Congrats on the aggressiveness. Have you had a chance to check out SBI TV yet?
I have. Yeah, John Staples was in recently. We had a good connection, and he connected me with a few of the folks, and we spent some time looking online, and you guys got some fantastic resources. Oh,
cool. I'm glad. I'm bringing it up because members that are watching this show are going to want to check out SBI TV, specifically an episode with a panel on it. And Chris Perry from Broadridge Financial, he's the head of sales, marketing, and services, is sitting on this panel. And it's relevant here because he runs marketing, sales, and services and uses data aggressively to make all of his critical decisions. And I think this audience might find it useful. So let's take a short break and direct everyone to subscribe to SBI TV. We'll be right back. You are watching SBI TV. This is a monthly web TV show featuring guests just like you, executives trying to grow their revenues. Each month, you can peek behind the scenes and watch your peers discuss their strategies for how they make their numbers. You are not going to want to miss this. Welcome back. My name is Greg Alexander, and I am the CEO of SBI. My guest today is Chris Lonnett, who heads Sales Ops in Motorola. Today we are discussing how a sales ops leader can develop a data plan, and we're using SBI's revenue growth methodology to do it. Page 161 and 162 if you're following along at home. If you still don't have a copy of the report, it's titled How to Make Your Number in 2016, and you can grab it at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016 report. Before the break, Chris and I were discussing dealing with dirty data and data stewardship. And during this segment, Chris is going to share with us his use of technologies and systems, which he just previewed for us, which they're getting very aggressive on this, which is great. So Chris, specific to the sales technology stack used to support sales and sales ops, what does your technology environment look like, if you were to briefly describe that for us?
Sure. Well, Salesforce.com is really the center piece of our stack. That's where we really want our sales folks to be and to get tremendous value from every day. And we actually implement the mobile version of that for our sellers in the fall. And again, we put heavy emphasis around simplifying our fields within Salesforce over the past 6 months to really drive what we would say is we wanted it to truly become, return it to our sales teams in terms of the values there. We implemented an integrated forecasting module just in the past month or so with Anaplan. And then some of the other key platforms that we use, our compensation tool is Exactly. We have an Adobe campaign lead management system, Calidus knowledge management platform, so our sellers get the information they need and in minimum time, not hunting around. We use Jive as a collaboration and social platform for them. And then I mentioned some of the other platforms that we're putting in really across the company, but our sellers are key users of, are the Google business applications, our voice over IP system from Switch, and then finally our big project with IBM and Oracle is our quote-to-order, log credit, ERP systems, order tracking systems across the company.
Very cool. That is quite a technology stack. And, I have to admit, when I was preparing for this interview and I was going to ask you that question, I almost didn't ask it because I had this impression in my mind of, Motorola having been around for so long. I don't know why, but I thought maybe you guys weren't going to be progressive users of technology within sales. But my goodness, you have everything that you would need there. One app in particular that I'm interested in is Anaplan. That seems to be gaining some traction. I've got some friends over there. How's that going?
It's going very well. Again, it's within the past 30 days that we've launched it. It has been a key driver of really connecting the dots, I like to say, of some of the previous investments in platforms that we've made. For example, our Salesforce.com implementation had a lot of different ways that it would talk about sales stages and at what point and opportunities at. As we implemented the forecasting module, we use this to connect and streamline and simplify that vocabulary. So it's been a good implementation. Their team has been fantastic in working with us to customize things that into an environment that would fit with our sellers. I think that one thing that we're seeing here in early days is that we implemented and focused a little bit too much on the operational dashboards that allow our senior leaders to see the forecast roll-ups from the field, and not enough in our initial designs of really making a difference for it to be valuable for the frontline sellers and their managers. And as I said earlier, at the end of the day, those are truly our customers that we got to wake up as sales ops and think about every day, making their lives better. Yep. So we didn't quite hit the mark on that one, I don't think, in our first 30-day launch, but we'll get it and absolutely make the tweaks along with Anaplan to make this a win-win for all of our sellers, from the front lines to the boardroom.
Okay, very good. I'll check back with you in a few months after you've had that in production for a while. Yeah. So data planning, pulling data from other systems, potentially outside of sales. So what systems outside of that sales tech stack that you just mentioned to me, which is really fantastic, you as the head of sales ops, like what systems outside of that do you need to pull data from, and how do you do that?
I think we've got our hands full with all the data that I mentioned, and within those systems, we certainly leverage some outside data, non-Motorola data, things like, GDP and industry trends and market spending and things like that around the world to help us. But other than that, we really have, as I said earlier, all the data that we need within our systems to set us on our path and our evolution in terms of sales and sales analytics.
Yeah, I did a poor job asking that question. Let me re-ask it. So you put in a new ERP system, which probably includes financials. You probably want some type of 360-degree view of the customer, particularly their purchasing history and how much money they spent with you over time. So does your Salesforce instance bolt on to your ERP application as an example?
It will. So those are all on our roadmap to absolutely integrate those things. A 360 view of our customer is one of our top projects of our information technology team, and our new chief information officer and the staff that he's brought in that really have been putting so much of the focus on these tools that I've been referencing. So that's absolutely on their radar, and those are key things that we count on them as our key work partners really to make all that happen.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about IT. So it sounds like you have a healthy partnership there with your IT team, which is great. Sometimes when I talk to guys that have your job, they're frustrated with their IT department, so they start, signing up for all these SaaS subscriptions because, they have the budget, it's relatively inexpensive, it's per user, per month kind of thing. The implementation is dead easy, you just go through a browser for a lot of these apps. And there's pluses and minuses to that. If you do that, you get to production quickly, but one day you're going to wake up and you got a spaghetti plate mess of IT systems all over the place and contracts that don't coincide, et cetera, et cetera. So it sounds like you decided not to do that, and you decided to form a partnership with IT, and that's worked for you. So why'd you make that decision?
Well, I think we're guilty as charged.
Oh, you are?
We
Okay.
certainly had that environment here at Motorola Solutions, and that's just, I think natural from happening, from being the business that we've been, and over the years with evolution and growth and expansion, that we had that spaghetti nest that you mentioned, and we certainly had software as a services pop up within business units, and sales was certainly no different. But again, as we as a company have come together and brought some great new leadership in with our IT department over the past 12 months, that was one of the first priorities, and we've aligned and put together in trust and partnership some great roadmaps around our needs and priorities. And clearly, as I referenced earlier, our partners in IT are going after it and making a difference and being bold, as you said, which is important. We're a high tech company, and IT is the key to the systems that we sell and help keep our community safe with, and it's important that we walk the walk and are cutting edge with our technology to help us do our jobs more effectively. So I love the partnership. I think it's a role model for other in businesses that you got to have that from sales operations in 2015 and in the future, and that's something that I think we're leading the pack on.
Yeah. So a message to those watching and listening, if you're in sales ops, be careful. Listen to what Chris just shared with you. Quick deployment sounds great. And then you wake up one day and you got quick deployment mess all over the place. Now, I know why you're doing that, sales ops leaders, because you go to IT and you make a request and it's 3 years before they fulfill it. So I get that side of it. So here's the other side of the coin to those that are in IT. Giddy up. You have to go faster. Your sales and marketing teams are dealing with the marketplace that's changing, and if they're going to make their number, they need these tools. So your deployment cycles can't take forever. And it's great. It's absolutely fantastic to hear of that healthy partnership between IT and sales in a very mature company. So they are a model to follow. Okay, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, Chris and I will discuss what to do next if you're a sales ops leader who needs to get to data-driven decision-making quickly. If you like listening to Chris and you want access to more peer-driven best practices, you're going to want to check out our blog. Why? Every single day, 365 days a year, we publish a best practice that can be read on your mobile device in less than 5 minutes. We also offer up a companion execution tool. So this is a good way for you to invest in yourself in a time-efficient way. So here's some information about the blog.
Each day, you receive hundreds of emails, tons of text messages, countless telephone calls, and sit in too many meetings. How do you find ideas to make the number with all this noise? The SBI blog filters all this nonsense for you and presents only first-rate ideas to make the number. Simplify your life. Subscribe to one blog and read the best content. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com and subscribe today.
Welcome back, everybody. Chris, let's package this sucker up into a call to action. We want this audience to take action after listening to your wisdom. So if you were on the set right now in our studio, you were staring at the camera, and you were speaking to the 20 to 30,000 people that will watch and listen to this over time, and you could only give them 1 to 3 things to do immediately following this show to help build a data plan for the sales ops team, what would those be?
Sure, Greg. Look, I think we've hit on them here over the past few minutes as we've talked through here on the podcast. I think number one, you got to focus on what matters, simplify it, boil it down to the key things that you truly got to have, and get alignment around those basic foundational approaches so that everyone's on the same page and you truly know what matters and can make that happen. Number two, you have to operationalize that. It's not going to do any good sitting in a spreadsheet somewhere or sitting on a server. It has to be used every month, every week, every day by sellers and sales management, helping them do their jobs more effectively in order to stay current and not become dirty. And then finally, number three, I think you have to have that partnership with IT. As Greg alluded to, they have to be partners that move fast and at the speed of business, and not a sales prevention department, but a sales enablement, as we have here at Motorola Solutions. But with that partnership, along with the simplified approach and operationalizing it day to day, you've got a chance to do good things.
Yeah, great advice, really is. Let me offer my 2 cents for what it's worth. There are 2 types of sales ops leaders, in my opinion. First, we have the strategic sales ops leader who delivers meaningful and measurable impact to the head of sales. This type of sales ops leader earns the title of vice president, much like Chris has, and earns a very high wage, deservedly so. Then you have the second type of sales ops leader, which I call the tactical sales ops leader, who just runs around doing everything no one else wants to do. This type of sales ops leader is a manager, or at best maybe a director, certainly not a VP, and is paid as such. So this is why you care about today's show. The way that you become the first one, the strategic sales ops leader, the high-paid, well-respected vice president, is data planning. It can't happen without the mastery of data planning. If you want to make sure you get this right, one more time I'm going to point you to our research report, How to Make Your Number in 2016. There's a whole chapter just on this subject. You can find it at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016 report. Better yet, if you feel you might not know how to do this and you want help, you can have one of our experts from SBI come to your place of business, put you through a workshop, and go step by step on how to build a killer data plan for next year. Just go to the same website, salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016 workshop this time. Chris, I want to thank you for being on the show. I put you on the spot today. I got a little tactical on you. I know that you're focused on lots of things, but your story, especially around your partnership with IT and that advanced IT stack you guys have built, is just really a fascinating story, and I think it will inspire many. So thanks a bunch for being on the show.
Thank you, Greg. I enjoyed it.
I also want to thank you, our viewing and listening audience, for tuning in. This show has become very popular, which is great. For example, it wouldn't surprise me if we get several thousand downloads just on this episode alone. And with that popularity comes the ability to get great guests like Chris to come on the show. If only 1 or 2 people were watching and listening, no one would want to come on the show, and I wouldn't blame them. And that's because of you, because of your loyal SBI followership. So thanks a bunch, and until I see you again on the next episode, I want to wish you the best of luck as you try to make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on SBI services, case studies, the SBI team and how we work, or to subscribe to our other offerings, please visit us at salesbenchmarkindex.com.